So I found this article today and I found it a little disturbing. I want to talk about why, because it is disturbing and it's not. So this is a story about a couple that went through a tragic accident and they made it through to marriage despite their troubles. So we're just going to scroll through here. So this is them at their wedding and she's very smiley and he's very in a wheelchair. And it's a beautiful story because it was a bad accident. You can see here a picture of him recovering from the accident. And you can read the story if you like. The real story here is that she decided to stick by him despite what happened. And I know they share stories like this with us because they're trying to inspire us and give us hope. A lot of the stories that are shared are meant to be inspirational, to lift us up, to build us up, to give us hope. They also, however, give us unrealistic expectations. This is not the normal response. Normally, when something happens to someone, they don't continue to stay by them. We all know someone where when the troubles arose, they were not their ride or die. And I'm glad that, again, it's new that she was willing and able to stick by him. I'm glad that they seem to be happy. I don't know why I couldn't get somebody to do that for me, and that's really what this boils down to is, could you get this same outcome from your life? If you went through this trouble, do you think the people that are around you would stick with you and stay true to the end? Would they be your ride or die? Or would they go looking for other options whenever trouble raises its ugly head? There are two different types of people in this world in this particular aspect. There are those who will stand up against the winds of opposition, and then there are those who, when the wolves come, will flee like the hirelings that they really are. And it's times like these where we learn what they are. And this couple, he's learned that she's the kind that will have his back, like we all hope to have. Someone will have our back, and not like Brutus had Caesar's. But we also know people who, when troubles arose, they were stabbed in the back, and the people went off and fled in search of better prospects. It's a tale as old as time. And when we look for these stories because they give us hope in our outcomes. I wanted to make this video in case you're one of the people for whom these outcomes are not happening, because these are outliers. The inspirational stories are outliers. This is not the normal. So if this is not what's happening to you, you're not alone. This is a story that's highlighted because it's rare. If this was what normally happened, it would not be newsworthy because it would be what we expected. It's like almost all spectacle in the media. They report on stuff that's abnormal. Now, it kind of gives the impression sometimes that what we're looking at is normal. I don't want to get into politics and stuff, but if you look at most of the news things, they do try and give the impression that whatever they're reporting is the rule, not the exception. They're actually pointing out the exceptions. They're pointing out outliers. It is not true that most people will still get married to someone who's been in an accident. It is not the rule that most cops are terrible people. It is not the rule that most places are under some sort of natural disaster all the time. We have so much access to information now that it just seems that we hear about it all the time. But most of what they put out there is because it's rare. If the movies were if they made movies about real life, no one would pay to see them because that's what we're going through all day long anyway. And so no one would want to go see them and be reminded about what their Monday through Friday life is like, or their weekends, or their summer vacation. Those movies are distinctly different from the usual human experience so that they will inspire us or allow us to be distracted from the otherwise routine and responsibility under which most people labor through most of their lives. But the impression is given when things like this happen that somehow maybe you're missing out because this isn't what happened to you. It certainly is not what happened to me. I went through plenty of problems when I was married, and instead of having my back, my wife decided to stab me in it and leave. And so I had a problem with this story at first because it kind of made me feel like God did not do miracles for me. Now, there were other miracles. I'm not with her anymore. I consider that a plus. And there have been other miracles that have come since then because I'm not with somebody who is not going to have my back. And that's a miracle. So the miracle here really is that he survived and that he discovered that the woman to whom he was betrothed actually loved him. Love stories, most of which we're familiar with from Grimm's fairy tales, Disney, or whatever, are not what usually happens. It is not the usual thing that the princess wanders off into the woods, makes friends with 7 dwarves, gets pricked by a spindle, and has to be brought out of her slumber by a pransom hints. It is not normal that in order to gain that someone comes along, fairy godmother, and gives you a dress and a coach and sends you off to the ball against the wishes of your evil stepmother, and then the prince has to go through the countryside and try on the glass slipper that you dropped, and while other people try and fit their feet into it as if he wouldn't recognize they weren't you. Okay, whatever. So those are fairy tales for a reason. This is not the usual thing. Usually, because most people are more selfish than they want to admit, when trouble arises, they go looking for a place that's less troublesome, or a person who causes them fewer troubles. So there are miracles. Miracles are rare. This is a rare story. It's an inspirational story. If these were common, they would not be inspirational. It's one of the reasons why I think God doesn't do more miracles, because if miracles were commonplace, we would regard them as common and we would not be inspired by them. We would not be awed by them, and then we would not be moved by them to change. I'm glad for this couple. I hope that their story plays out really well. If you're someone where this is not what happened to you, where you did not recover, where you did not have people stand by you, I want you to know you're not alone. Elijah the prophet is one of my favorites from the Old Testament. Elijah believed at one point that he was the only person who had not abandoned God, and God told him, no, there are 50 other priests, the Amorites, who have not yet bowed to Baal. You're not alone. You just don't know about the others. So we don't publish stories about this. We don't, because no one wants to read about, I was in an accident and my wife left me. Because, yeah, story of my life. So we want these things because we want to have hope and we want to have faith and we want to believe that things are going to end happily ever after. But that's the problem with religion, is that for us the happily ever after may not come today and it may not come here on earth. That sometimes things are only made right when God meets us at judgment and rewards us according to our desire to be faithful in spite of opposition. Now, this couple already has one of their rewards. He got to find out that he is marrying a woman who really loves him. This is good. And everyone who has someone who really loves them, I'm grateful for those people. Some people will go through their whole life never having anyone actually love them that isn't a family member, blood relative already. If you're one of those people, I want you to know you're not alone. I'm not sure anyone has ever loved me, and I've been married. She was definitely not my ride or die. This is an inspirational story. It's supposed to give you hope. It's supposed to give you faith. It's supposed to buoy you up. And the part they don't say is that God's answers and God's blessings are not always swift like this. That's not always going to play out as we would hope now. You may have to wait a longer than you like for the things that you know that you have earned and for the things that God has promised you. And if you're waiting longer than you feel is appropriate, you're not alone. There are lots of people in your boat. This is the exception to the rule. But we want to know about exceptions because we want to know what it looks like to come into our land of promise, to get into that land flowing with milk and honey after we spend 40 years in the wilderness of Sinai. Because we want to know that at the end of the journey, there is something worth taking the journey and leaving what we know behind for the promises that God has made of a better world, a better place, a land of promise, a land where his promises, though not always swift, are sure. And I'm coming to you as someone who has not arrived. I haven't been on a date since October of 2015. As I was telling a student in the hallway just a little while ago, the only women who seem to like me are women who have kids already. And I'm not interested in someone else's kids. It's not that other women don't like me. It's that I want to know that someone is there for me and not for what I can do for their kids. Can I be inspired by this story? Absolutely. It is good to see that miracles still happen. One day I would like them to happen to me. And so if you're in the same boat and you see these kinds of stories and you feel a little bit left out, I want to leave you with this. We know from Jesus' ministry himself that the closer you come to Christ, the more likely it will appear that he is ignoring you. It's because he's not worried about you anymore. He is more concerned with the lost sheep than the 99 where he knows where they are. And so it will appear that he cares less than he did when you were lost. It is not true that he doesn't care less. It is that the efforts that are being directed towards those like the man in this story, who at the moment are in need of rescue. And if you're not actually in need of rescue, he's not going to be coming after you. It doesn't mean he doesn't have good things for you. There's still a nice field in which you can graze. There are still people around you who share your beliefs and your faith and your hope for a better pasture for yourself. It just means that in that moment, he has gone out to rescue others who he would like to bring into the fold. He does not love those 99 sheep any less. They are not sheep that worry him in the moment. So take some solace, I guess, if he's not worried about you in the moment. That if he's not worried about you, that you're in a good place. Years ago, last time I was engaged, when it fell out, my closest male cousin told me, if it's a commandment for you right now, he will provide a way. And if he does not provide a way, it's not important for you right now. So if he's not opening up the windows of heaven and pouring you out a blessing, it may be that it is not time to receive it. So if you're wondering when your time will come, I do not know. It's not today. It's right here at the top, ironically. Sometimes miracles and answers to prayers come on his time and not the individual's. Theirs was granted quickly. Yours may not be granted as quickly as you like. And I cannot say that mine are granted, but I still believe that they can be, and that they might be, and that they will be, even if I have to wait longer than I like for the things that he has promised to those who are faithful. C.S. Lewis taught that some of God's favorite children spend more time in deeper troughs than any of the others. It is in those trough periods, much more than the peaks, that you are being transformed into the kind of person he would like you to be. The devil is trying to raise up humans to become like cattle to become food. God is trying to raise up men to become sons. So if you're struggling, if you don't feel like he cares, it might just be he's not worried about you, and that's not your time. But when you need a rescue, there is a Redeemer who will come look for you too, who will be glad to sweep you up in his arms and give you answers to prayers according to his wisdom, his grace, and his timing. That I testify in the name of Jesus Christ. Godspeed.